and we'll get right into the business, get everyone onto what's happening. So to my immediate right, of course, you all know the man who needs no introduction, Mr. Andy Port, our city's planning director, Ms. Gretchen Joy, our keeper of the minutes. Yeah, a round of applause.
That was for Gretchen, right?
All members. Mr. Ken Swanton, our vice chair to my left, to his left, Mr. Larry Ginta, and Gregory Bennick to his left. Since there are only 4 members, all 4 of the members this evening are legally the voting members. My name is Rob Champetti. Of course, I think I know everyone in the room. That means that in order to have this application, the only one on our agenda, but really any application, in order for it to prevail, there needs to be at least 4 votes in the affirmative, 4 yes votes, which means it would need to be unanimous this evening. So we always say that just in case an applicant wishes, or I should say in this case, Mr. Kutcher, if you wanted to step back and come back another evening when we had a full board, it would be within your rights and your privilege to ask for that. We will grant it, though we're happy to, go forward since we're all here. But it's just one of the courtesies we extend when we have a minimum board vote like tonight. So I'll call the roll. We'll establish our legal quorum. We'll get right into our public hearing and get on to business. So calling the roll, Mr. Swanton. Here. Mr. Ginta. Present. Mr. Bennick. Here. Rob Champetti, I'm here. That's 4 present. That is our quorum. So going into the public hearings, we'll start with the application for Mr. Brad Kutcher, 3 Hancock Street. The applicant seeks all necessary permits and permissions and approvals for a special permit to allow the removal of more sheathing than was originally permitted in 2020 with the original application, which causes the exterior wall demolition to be greater than 25% allowed under the DCOD, the Demolition Control Overlay District. So this is a special permit under the DCOD. Mr. Kutcher, you have. And how do you want, just for recording sake, should we just have Brad, does he want to?
Oh, sorry, if you don't mind standing here.
Do we have or need a mic for him, or is it?
Yeah, so we don't need a mic, but if you might, yeah, that's good, right, good. Just want to get you a little audience seating, for some reason tonight was pushed back a little further, so I just want to make sure you're close enough to help. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for taking the time to hear me tonight. My name is Brad Kutcher. I'm the owner and the developer of 3 Hancock Street.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. Bought this project from another developer, James Ford. When I bought it, I bought it from a reputable real estate broker too, does a lot in the city here. And I did what I thought was all my homework. I asked him, I need to know everything about it. I've done a lot of work in the city over the years. And I know in certain areas, there's a lot of overlay, there's a lot of historic preservation going on. I'm fully aware of the demolition overlay district, so I'm not here to make any excuses. I did my homework. I believe I did it very thoroughly. After I purchased the home, I hired my own structural engineer to go through a home. I have a letter from him, and the structural engineer said that the house, he said, cannot be saved, period. I said, well, that's not an option. He said, well, I'm telling you, put it in my letter, stamp it, it can't be saved, period. He went through the whole thing. I paid him $4,000. But I said, I don't care what it costs to save it. That's not the option. I just want to find out what needs to be done. So if you see his letter, I have a copy if you need it. He suggested I take it down. I also had the right to enact a 1-year demolition stay. And then it kind of superseded the historic commission, but I wouldn't do that. I didn't want to do it. I didn't buy it for that reason. I've done a lot of work in the city over the last 35 years. I take a lot of pride in the work that we do. And I care about the city. I really do. I understand what makes the report beautiful. I'm not naive to this. We've been here in town for coming on 4 decades. I know what makes the report special, what makes Portsmouth special and Portland. So I get it, and I want to do this right. I dealt with the architect Scott Brown and went over the plans in great detail, how it's going to look, right down to the shingle color. I then went and I hired a second engineer because I read the condition of approval. The ridge can only be 20 inches higher. So I hired a second engineer who actually as-built the ridge. And then when we raised the ridge, during the frame, I had him come back and as-built it again to make sure we stayed within 20 inches. So I thought everything was going along well. And then I got a call from the city planning office saying, Brady, you took off too much sheeting. And I said, what do you mean? In fact, about this, I thought I was doing a good job. I saved anything we could save, I saved. Would have been easy to keep it was there. But when we took off, I had to come off, it wasn't salvageable. So when you say, what do you mean it had to come off? The plans we have that were approved by this board and by the historic commission, the plans showed some of the windows being located in different areas. So when you frame it for a new window, you're ripping out the old sheathing where there was sheathing, you're putting a brand new window there. So between the sheathing that had to come off, between a lot of the, that house had blown in insulation. So a lot of the insulation was blown in, is a lot of older homes have, they cut circles, 2.5 to 3 inch diameter circles through the house, so it was an awful lot of penetrations through the existing sheathing. So when you did come off, take the sheathing off, it would crack in your hands or crumble. So anything that could be saved, we nailed off, and then we couldn't, we replaced it with sheathing, because I still have to meet the code. But when I was told that, right, you exceeded the percentage of sheathing you're allowed, I said, where? I said, I have the permits and the plans here with me, the bottom of it. These are the plans drawn by the architect. These are the plans that were submitted to the city. These are the plans that got my building permit on. And it doesn't, it says, and I'll let you all look at this and pass it on. It goes on in their notes. Keep the existing roof rafters consistent to it. We did that. Keep the front sheathing on the front of the roof. We did that. But nowhere does it say keep all the existing sheathing there. You can see some pictures there of what we're dealing with. So I believed that I was doing anything, not only by the book, but above and beyond. We took the time to introduce ourselves to the neighbors. We're finding the fact that it's a very tight area. We try to park up streets. I went so far as to get a dumpster permit there, because the dumpsters, when we loaded the dumpster, we had to get rid of it right away. So I pulled the permit from DBW, permit for the dumpsters, we load it, we get it the next day, we full. We did everything what I thought was being courteous and considerate. We cautioned him the area. So when I was asked to stop, by the planning office, just said, if you don't, we'd have to issue a cease and desist. I said, no, I'll certainly voluntarily stop. I'm not looking to create havoc. This is my name. This is the only way that I feed my family and I care deeply. That's why I've done a lot of work in the city. In the past, we've been awarded the Historic Preservation Award. We were awarded that back for something we did in High Street a number of years ago. I've done more PR restrictions, which is a preservation restriction. I've got more recorded PRs in the city than any other developer. Anybody, you can look online, they've all been recorded. So I do understand the significance of working in a city, working with all the homes. We try to do it right. So when I was asked to shut down, I just said to the planning office, I said, just tell me what I have to do. And I'll do it. And Annie's been great working me through this, tell me how to file, and that's why I'm here tonight to represent myself. I wanted to talk to you one-on-one and answer any questions that you or anybody in the audience may have. So that's the story. I didn't believe that we did anything wrong. I have the order, I have the conditions there, approval, and the plans. I didn't see where I wasn't allowed to do what I did. And I believe, I went as far, we saved the chimney, not just in the chimney, we saved the interior of the fireplace, we're saving all the brick we can save there. Again, like I said, I kept the house. I didn't exercise my rights to go ahead and do the 1 year stay and demolish it. It'll look exactly like this plan, like this board approved, the exact plans. We have windows in the right locations. I've already gone out and ordered and paid for $35,000 worth of Anderson Ford series windows with the true divided lights, the similar divided lights, so it looks authentic. That was a custom order, there's 12 lead time. I ordered them, I paid for them. We're doing things right by the plan here and right by the conditions, so I just wanted to kind of answer any questions that the board may have and just say in front of you, acknowledge what, I did something wrong, I want to know it, and I will correct it.
Okay. Thank you, Brad. So what we'll do is we're just gonna go through our process.
Sure.
And we'll start with, it's a small room. What we begin with, the next step of this hearing process is public comment. So was there anything else you wanted to add? I mean, we may have questions.
Sure, yeah, no, other than.
If not, you're welcome to have a seat. You're welcome to pull up a seat, but make yourself comfortable and
Okay.
you can grab a seat. We're gonna just go through the process and then
Sure.
get into the nuts and bolts.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so closing the presentation portion of the public hearing, we'll go into public comment. Anyone in the room wish to speak in connection with the application? Sir? Just give us your name and address so that Gretchen can.
Hello, zoning board of appeals. My name is James G. Cullum, resident and citizen of Newburyport, homeowner at 5 Hancock Street, the closest abutter to this renovation project, and a staunch supporter of Mr. Brett Kutcher's renovation of this home. I'm joined with my across the street abutting neighbor, Phil Heffernan. He'll be speaking on his own behalf shortly. And some of the photos that you had here today of the renovation project directly are either taken across the street from Phil's home at 2 Hancock or show my abutting property, which is the closest property. I bought this house 2 years ago, a little bit over 2 years ago. Mr. Heffernan can speak for himself. He's been on the block longer than that. This house has been a derelict eyesore house in this neighborhood, in this town, for the entire years I've been a homeowner here. In this town, on this wonderful South End historic block, which is a great neighborhood, not only just in this town, but many kids. We're close to the rail trail, not too far from Perkins Park. And I have submitted, as have Rachel and Phil Heffernan, a letter of support for this renovation project to continue to this Board of Appeals, to the Historic Commission. We have previously shown up, myself, Mr. Heffernan, and other neighbors of ours who are not present here tonight to give testimony and support to Mr. Kutcher and the project to the Historic Commission. I can personally testify as a homeowner that the house is literally a derelict eyesore. I couldn't believe it was historic. When I first saw it, it looked like something from the 1930s. I just said, there's no way this is a historic home. And I never even believed it until Brad started his renovation. I could see the sheathing, which is clearly, not from the last century. And I have witnessed this project literally every day that it was ongoing. I have gone over many times personally, and with Mr. Heffernan, who can speak for himself. I've met the crew, that was the carpenters that are doing this work. I've talked to Phil. We've gone into the facility together, the home. Just absolute decay, these historic boards. I live in a house that was 5 Hancock, was built in the late 1700s, 1795. It was renovated and it was beautiful, and that's why I bought it. But still, I go into my basement, I see the original wood that's hundreds of years old. It's worm eaten. It's been, shored up with beams. And this home, it's a miracle it didn't even fall down to the ground. So I'm not a structural engineer. I'm a biochemist. If you want to geek out on DNA, we can talk about that kind of stuff. But I have seen this as close up as possible. I know Mr. Kutcher. I've seen what's been taken down and maintained. I'm here to testify that I believe Mr. Kutcher and his team have maintained the maximum amount of historical wood that's possible to do. I've seen it myself, what's been taken down, what's maintained. And I can say, as an abutting tax-paying homeowner, I'm staunchly in support of the completion of this project so that we can have something that is a boon for this town, our neighborhood. We can have a family living in there. The town can make it the income, and it will go from being an eyesore, which has been a derelict house for 2.5 years that I've been there, to something that really fits with the South. And with that, I'll be quiet and happy to take any questions.
All right. Thank you, Doctor. We will,
I mean, I have a doctorate, but I'm not a medical doctor.
it's okay. Nobody dabbles in biochemistry, so I just made that.
Thank you so much for
With
that.
hopefully your indulgence and every courtesy. But,
And I thank you for your indulgence.
no, quite all right. It's a small room. We can, kind of move a bit
And-
informally as well, but we'll invite you to just, you can grab a seat, and what we do next, we'll just continue through our short room, and we'll hear from anyone else who wishes to speak, and then we'll go to questions from the board where we may adapt questions. We may circle back to you or Mr. Kutcher, but thank you for your.
Thank you very much, gentlemen and lady. Appreciate the
Very good.
opportunity to be heard.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak, sir?
Sure.
Thanks.
So my name is Phil Heffernan. My wife and myself live at 2 Hancock Street. I think Brad's been great to deal with. He's been very respectful to the neighborhood. Watching how he's worked on the house every day, it's been pretty amazing. I've gone over there and checked it out, what he's saving and what he's not. I think he's a very reputable builder, and I'm looking forward to the completion of the house. And that's it.
Very good.
Very great.
Thank you, sir. We, having seen no other human bodies in the room, we have nobody online as well, so I'll go ahead and close the public comment section, and we'll go to questions from the board. Mr. Swanton, any questions?
I don't live that far away from it, and I walked by there, yesterday, and, it's all pretty open. You can look in the window and kind of see everything that's happening. I see the fireplace, looks like it's been saved. A tremendous amount of the wood is new, which I can understand. So I just want to make sure you're building this according to the plan that's approved. The window locations are all as in the plan. Yeah. Okay. I spoke with the zoning enforcement officer and I read the historic commission report, and I just basically want to thank you for talking to you. I heard there was a problem and for going through the process and for talking to the historic commission and for getting their support. So I have no other questions.
All right, good. Thank you for.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Swanton. Mr. Ginta.
So you fully intend on rebuilding this house even after what you've seen?
Yeah, even after the letter from the structural engineer, yeah, all that told me, the letter from the structural engineer is that the prudent thing in a different situation, we take it down, obviously. That doesn't take into account that it's in a historic neighborhood, so I understand that. So, yeah, the bottom line, it'll cost me more money to restore it the way it should be restored, but yes, I'll restore it exactly as the plans were drawn, that this board approved. And when it's done, no one will ever know that, I have a few more sheets of real plywood versus old plywood in there. That'll all be covered up anyway. So the house we built and designed exactly as approved and as the board shows.
I commend you for that. Most people wouldn't have done that. They would have waited out a year.
Yeah, that would have been easy. Even some of the people that I work with, I finance through a bank, a local bank, and they say, wouldn't the economic thing be, the most economical feasible thing be to wait it out a year, pay carry costs and go forward, get somewhere where you get more money for it? I said, no, because, in a lot of towns, yeah, but not in a historic town like this, in a historic neighborhood. I said, and my name, I said, I've built a name in this town because we do try to keep things, historic. We try to preserve it. We work with boards, with the neighborhood. So if I did that, I would have lost everything I've done for 35 years, as far as credibility. So I wasn't gonna do that now.
You're doing a good thing.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Ginta. Mr. Bennett.
No questions. I just echo my colleagues.
All right, thank you.
Very good.
Very appreciate it.
I also, I have no questions that weren't already addressed. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. And so I appreciate, your comments and the questions and answers. So, with that, I'm going to close, questions from the board and you're welcome to have a seat again, Mr. Kudrow. You can also stand if you're comfortable, whatever you'd like to do. But, we're going to go to deliberations, before we undertake a potential vote. So again, we're deliberating as a board, the special permit criteria. So we'll begin, maybe Mr. Swanton, you can just give us a quick snapshot of the legal criteria that must be met, and then we can get into the board's sentiment on whether Mr. Kutcher's met the criteria and so on.
Well, I think I'd like to focus on, we have a lot of leeway here. We have to figure out whether the historic materials that are being removed could have been saved. I think the pictures, and for me, the historic commission report is pretty persuasive that they could not, and much as we might like to preserve them. And I applaud them for preserving pieces. I think the conditions are met as far as us analyzing whether these materials can be saved, particularly with the historic commission's input, that they can't. So I applaud him for keeping the same look to the house. It's going to look like we approved it. It's just that underneath there'll be some new studs and some new sheathing, but I think that's where we are.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Ginta.
Well, I mean, keeping this historic house in the neighborhood is a good thing, and those pictures were very telling that we saw up there. This is a house, and I think one of the neighbors mentioned it, that has decayed over the years. And unfortunately, they had to remove more than they intended to. But at the end of the day, this historic house will stand. So, my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Ginta. Sorry, Mr. Bennett.
The evidence is overwhelming and uncontradicted. The engineer's report is clear. Report is very helpful. There was nothing much to suggest this historic structure in any event, aside from the chimney. The original windows were covered, and siding on the structure. It certainly lacked. It was lacking in its original historic significance. All that being repaired and restored, plus certainly to the neighborhood and to the city's architectural history. Strong neighborhood support. And I think also it's kind of curious that we have in our zoning ordinance kind of this obligation to maintain the fabric. Andrew commented as we were just kind of shooting the breeze here prior to the meeting, which of course that's not at any point in sight after the structure's done. So it's kind of a unique requirement, which I'm not sure much to our responsibilities or much support to restoration of historic structures. So all of that being said, this is pretty easy to approve, and I applaud Mr. Butcher for his good works here.
Yeah, I'd like to add two things. Sure. One, I think it's very important that you're keeping the form of the house, the shape of the house, the layout of the door, the windows and everything. Because that's part of the historic fabric of the town. The other is I applaud you for getting true divided light windows, and that's a lot of money for windows for a very small house. Yeah, I mean, I'm building a house and paying a lot less for my windows. So anyway, so I'd like to add those two things for the record.
Thank you. I can, I echo the comments of my colleagues. And I know, Mr. Kutcher, Brad, you and I have known each other for a long time. I have great respect for your work and your work ethic, and your credibility has always been beyond reproach. When I look at this and just sort of in my less trained sort of aesthetic and eye, we hear and vent about words like preservation and adaptive reuse, and maybe they're cliched words, but the word cliche exists because it reflects life. I mean, preservation ought to never mean paralysis. We don't live in a static world where things just are old and stay old and therefore shall thenceforth ever be old, right? Things suffer the ravages of decay just like we do. And I think when it comes to the bricks and sticks of our built environment, we have to be sensitive to the notion of this malleable form of preservation, which is really more of a lensed view of how do we steward forward the aesthetic and spirit of a historic structure, taking into account that we live, upon a corrosive and erosive spinning, body of rocks, right? A globe of rocks, and it does this over hundreds of years. So I think that to, Mr. Swanton's point, preserving the form is the best aspiration of historic preservation. Preserving the actual, matter that makes up the sheathing or anything else, I think is a naive aspiration in some instances. And I think this is one of those instances. You're doing a great job. I appreciate you coming to us and going through all the right channels, as of course you would always do. This is sort of the best example of how this process works when it aspires to do good work and allow, your fellow neighbors who sit on, at this side of the table in this instance, try to, bring our level best to how do we address a situation like this where you're on the wrong side of the ordinance. And I think this is the right way to address it, is to, bid you well, acknowledge it, recognize it, take a careful look at it, and see it forward. So good job, and continue to do it. I certainly support it. I think the applicants also met the burden. So with that, unless there's anything else that anybody wanted to add, I'll close deliberations and entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion. Motion to approve the application for the DCOD special permit for 3 Hancock Street with the special condition as follows, which concerns the sidewalk. The applicant shall repair the brick sidewalk transition to the concrete driveway apron in accordance with the specifications provided by the Department of Public Service. That improvement shall be completed prior to occupancy permit. The extenuating circumstances, including but not limited to seasonal constraints, an alternative deadline for compliance herewith may be submitted to and approved at the sole direction of the zoning administrator. I don't know if you were familiar with that concern, but anyway, that's my motion.
Did you get all that? Catchy, right?
It's,
No, this comes to us at the courtesy and greatly appreciated from the planning department to help us sort of craft the language that
Sure.
protects and preserves. So thank you, thank you, Mr. Swanton, for the motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Ginta, motion's made by Mr. Swanton and seconded by Mr. Ginta, calling the roll. Mr. Swanton.
Yes.
Mr. Ginta.
Yes.
Mr. Bennett.
Yes.
Rob Champetti, I vote yes. That's 4 in the affirmative. The ayes have it. Motion carries and the application is approved. Thank you.
great,
And thank you, gentlemen, for coming in. Appreciate your comments. And, all right, so with that, we can go ahead and that being our first, only and final application this evening, we'll close the public hearings. And, thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, have a good
Gentlemen,
night.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good night. Going into the business meeting, we have the minutes of 8/27/2024. Any comments for Gretchen's minutes? No, oh, did you have a comment?
We approve.
That's a motion to approve by Mr. Swanton, seconded by Mr. Ginta. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No votes, abstentions? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Minutes approved. Motion to adjourn. I'm sorry. Any comments?
No, no.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye. Hey,
Motion
28
carries.
minutes.
Look at that, man. That's,
Yeah.
did we do some speed zoning? Did we break a record?
We did.
Right up there. You know what? I mean, I don't want to use the word like heroes, but I just say the real heroes are out there. But